He walked into the courtroom expecting a normal day. Just another case, just another judge. But in seconds, everything spiraled out of control. A sharp hand, a humiliating slap, and whispers rippled through the room. He hadn't done anything wrong, yet the world seemed to judge him in that instant. And then, as stunned eyes watched, a revelation hit everyone like a thunderbolt. What they didn't know would change everything. Who was this man really? And why did the judge's mistake shake the entire courtroom to its core? It was supposed to be an ordinary day in the courthouse. He had prepared his case, confident and calm, walking the familiar halls that had seen him win countless battles. Everyone respected him, or so he thought. Judges, lawyers, and clerks passed by, some nodding, others oblivious to his presence. But beneath the polished veneer of routine, tension lingered. Little did he know that a single moment, a careless glance, a judge's unchecked prejudice would ignite a storm that no one in that courtroom would ever forget. This day was about to rewrite everything he thought he knew about respect, power, and identity. The courtroom buzzed with the low murmur of conversations. Papers shuffled, and the occasional cough echoing off the high ceilings. He took his seat, his briefcase resting neatly by his side, unaware of the eyes silently tracking his every move. Across the room, the judge adjusted his robe, a flicker of impatience in his gaze, though no one noticed at first. The tension was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, a foot tapping, a sigh escaping, a glance that lingered too long. Then it happened. A sharp motion, a hand raised in authority, and a loud slap that cracked through the room like thunder. Gasps followed immediately. Heads turned, and the weight of disbelief settled in the air. He froze, gripping the edge of the table, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The humiliation was immediate, raw, and unrelenting. Everyone expected submission, quiet acceptance, but not him. The judge's voice echoed, clipped and commanding, laced with a condescending tone that made the room shrink around him. Papers were shuffled as whispers spread like wildfire. The spectators leaned forward, some shocked, some confused. He had done nothing wrong, yet the courtroom seemed to conspire against him in that single, unbearable moment. Each second stretched painfully, the walls closing in. His dignity threatened by the very symbol of justice meant to protect it. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, aware that reacting hastily could worsen the situation. But inside, anger and disbelief churned like a storm. How could someone in a position of power let bias override reason? How could a judge, trained to uphold fairness, let prejudice decide his actions? His mind raced, recalling every case he had argued, every decision he had influenced, proof of his dedication, his knowledge, and his integrity. None of it mattered here, not at this moment. As murmurs swelled, the room's energy shifted. Colleagues who had respected him now looked on with curiosity, some with thinly veiled judgment. Cameras on phones discreetly recorded the incident, every frame ready to travel far beyond the courtroom walls. The tension built with each passing heartbeat. He realized this was no longer just a personal affront. It had become a spectacle, a moment where racial injustice and power collided for all to see. Yet amid the rising chaos, a plan began to form in his mind. He would not be humiliated silently. The knowledge of who he truly was, the role he held beyond this courthouse, lingered, a silent weapon waiting to be revealed. Every step, every breath, every glance from the judge and the audience fed the suspense. The revelation that was about to unfold would shake the room, challenge assumptions, and leave everyone questioning what they thought they knew about authority, respect, and identity. In that charged atmosphere, the stage was set. The next few moments would determine not only the courtroom's reaction, but also the lesson the world outside would witness. And as he prepared to rise, the tension crackled like electricity in the air, promising a confrontation that no one would ever forget. The courtroom held its breath. Every eye fixed on him as he slowly stood, the weight of the slap still stinging, the echo of injustice hanging heavy in the air. The judge's gavel lay idle, a silent symbol of authority that had just been misused. His hands clenched slightly at his sides, but his expression remained calm, almost serene, an unspoken warning that the moment of reckoning had arrived. Then, with measured steps, He approached the center of the room. The whispers grew louder, curiosity mixing with disbelief. Every heartbeat seemed amplified, every movement magnified. He reached into his briefcase and, with a deliberate gesture, revealed the credentials that would transform the tension into shock. The unmistakable emblem confirming he was the White House's top prosecutor. The room froze. Phones were raised mid-recording, mouths opened and closed as the realization sank in. The judge, once towering in perceived authority, now paled under the weight of this revelation. The humiliation he had attempted to impose on another now mirrored itself back with blinding intensity. Colleagues who had whispered in judgment now stared in stunned silence, understanding the gravity of their assumptions. The slap, a moment meant to demean, was now the spark that exposed the harsh reality of prejudice in plain sight. Time seemed to slow as the implications settled over everyone present. The courtroom, once a stage of injustice, transformed into a chamber of revelation. People shifted uncomfortably, some turning away, unable to meet the gaze of a man who had just shown that dignity and authority cannot be dismissed by bias. He spoke only once, softly yet firmly. A calm declaration of identity, of truth, and of the consequences of underestimating someone based on skin color. The tension reached its peak. The judge, confronted by undeniable proof, struggled to regain composure, aware that his actions had now become the lesson everyone would remember. The emotional crescendo was complete. The slap, the shock, the revelation, it all collided in an intense moment of justice, irony, and accountability. In that charged instant, the story had shifted. What began as an act of humiliation had turned into an unyielding testament. Power and respect are not determined by appearances, but by truth, integrity, and the courage to stand tall even in the face of injustice. The courtroom slowly returned to its normal rhythm, though the air remained thick with disbelief and reflection. He sat back down, composed, yet the energy of what had just unfolded lingered like an electric charge. The slap, meant to diminish him, had instead illuminated a harsh truth. Prejudice can strike anywhere, but integrity and courage always shine through. Conversations buzzed quietly, whispers now tinged with awe rather than judgment. The judge, once confident and dismissive, now confronted the reality of his actions. Colleagues who had watched in silence understood that this moment would linger far beyond these walls. It was not just about one man, one courtroom, or one day. It was about a larger truth that affected countless lives. He gathered his papers, ready to leave, but the impact of his presence extended far beyond the immediate courtroom. The revelation of his identity had sent a message. Assumptions based on skin color are not just harmful, they are blind to the truth of a person's worth, ability, and achievements. In that instant, respect was recalibrated, and the lesson became undeniable. Outside, the world continued unaware of the moment that had quietly redefined perceptions of authority and prejudice. But for those who had witnessed it, the story would not be forgotten. The shock, the revelation, and the silent yet undeniable power of truth would linger in minds and conversations, reminding everyone that injustice, however sudden, can be confronted with dignity and resilience. As he walked out of the courthouse, each step carried a weight of triumph, tempered by the understanding that many still face prejudice daily. His experience was both a warning and a beacon, that courage, knowledge, and standing firm against injustice have the power to transform not just individual moments, but the perceptions of all who witness them. The question remained, echoing silently in the minds of everyone present. How often do we let assumptions guide our judgment? And what will it take for the world to finally see the truth beyond appearances? One slap had tried to break him, but in the end it had revealed a lesson far greater than anyone could have anticipated.